Hi everyone, Angelo here, and it's the third Sunday of Easter. So this story would have happened just after the famous Road to Emmaus story, where Jesus would have appeared to a couple of his disciples through the breaking of the bread. And they decide we need to go back to Jerusalem and find the others and let them know that this is true. Christ is risen. And then when they link up in the midst of the wider conversation, Christ reveals himself to them there too. And he's like, look, see, touch, feel, and give me something to eat even. And then, of course, forever the rabbi, he breaks down the scriptures for them and he teaches them. Now, when I read this story, the thing that stands out to me the most is how emotionally charged this reading is. Because I first wonder about the couple who would have first encountered Christ as they making their way back to Jerusalem. Are they filled with hope or filled with doubt, even confusion, maybe even fear? Because they're making their way back to the same place where the leader of their movement was executed as a criminal of the state. And then, what are the disciples experiencing when they're hearing this story? Like, are they feeling hope? Are they feeling even more doubt? Are they feeling anger at these two for saying something like this? Or maybe they even feeling like, you know, we always knew you all were a little bit crazy, but now for sure this proves that you've gone mad. And then even when Jesus would have appeared to them, what did these disciples experience? Were they then feeling hope, or were they feeling even more doubt? And Christ even calls them out. He's like, why all this agitation and why all this doubt? I'm here, I'm in front of you. And I wonder too, what would Jesus have been experiencing as well? Was it pain and hurt and rejection, especially given the way he would have been abandoned just a couple of days prior before his execution? Or was it even a longing, this longing to reconnect and reconcile with them and to bring everybody into union? And, with all the emotions going through this story, it does make me think of our own human experiences, and especially the moments where all we need is a person to sit with us in silence. Because so many times we may experience things and there's no easy answer to it, and we mightn't even be looking necessarily for help or advice, but rather for a listening ear. And I know too, especially for us as men, we have a way where from the moment somebody has a problem, our default is to offer a response or a solution. But I think so many times in our own experiences, we might understand that we may not need words. We may not need the right answer, but rather all we need to do is sit with a person in their pain, in their discomfort, as painful and as uncomfortable as it might be for us as well, even though we might be going through the problem directly. Because so many times, if there is an answer, the answer comes out through the person sharing their own experience and hearing their story back for their own selves. They might have a light bulb moment in that while we sit there and simply listen. Or even too, if it comes to some kind of conflict, a lot of times things like the forgiveness and the reconciliation and the healing comes from a person being able to voice their own story. And I mean, I think about it too, because of course we all breathe and we believe that the breath we breathe is the same breath of God that God would have breathed into us at creation. When we put that breath of God, that ruah, the Jewish word, out into the world, and with all the intention and love behind that, that's where a lot of times the healing and the forgiveness and the reconciliation comes from. And I mean, thankfully, we in the Catholic Church, we have a good amount of structures to be able to help with those kinds of issues. I mean, of course, we have the sacraments, right? And things like confession. We have two, spiritual direction. And then, of course, I mean, I'm a big advocate for talk therapy, you know. And then the idea of us simply sitting with a friend and being present, not even being on our phones or anything, but just simply being there, listening to them. That is majorly healing a lot of times. And then even if we feel like we mightn't be able to necessarily, like say we're the ones going through it, we mightn't be able to sit with anybody at that point in time. Things like journaling and meditation, those things help a lot too. And this is a person I've mentioned a good few times before, but one person who I know is super excellent at all of this is my dear friend Adana James, who she has the ability to listen deeply to the point where I am very sure anybody who encounters her feels heard by the end of that conversation. Even still, too, the fact that this woman leads our seminary, our local seminary here in Trinidad and Tobago, it gives me a lot of hope that somebody with this predisposition and this wisdom and authority behind her is able to then lead the future priests of, well, not just our archdiocese, but for the entire region. Adana brings me a lot of hope, the same way the disciples in this story, by the end of it, would have been feeling a lot of hope. And, I feel like given everything that we are able to do in light of God's grace for our own selves, the things like taking it upon ourselves to reach out to somebody and talk, or to go to some kind of therapy or counseling, or of course meditation, I would say, especially when it comes to nature, there's something that hits different about that. When we do that work for our own selves, that comes like when Christ reveals himself to us in whichever way, that comes like the same piece of fish that the disciples would have given him to eat. And I don't think Jesus discriminates at all. I mean, I think at the end of the day, whatever we offer to him of our own selves, he will take and gladly consume and give it back to us in fullness. But I think the better that we could do for our own selves, again, in light of all the grace of God, the better we're able to do is the nicer something that we are able to give to him. So why not do our best? Because ultimately, anything we give, God takes and consumes, the same way we take and consume God as well. And that's what ultimately gives us the food for our hope, and the fuel for our mission. So I love this story, and I definitely think it requires a lot more contemplation. Anyway, that's it from me this week. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thank you.